In Hollywood's high-stakes realm, where fame can shift instantly, the firing of stars mid-filming reveals dramatic tales of upheaval. Actors Who Got Fired in the Middle of Filming explores these pivotal moments, whether due to personal clashes or creative disputes, that reshape careers and alter film histories. Discover the most shocking and unforgivable firings as we dive into some of cinema's most unforgettable casting controversies. Kevin Spacey and All the Money in the World. Under some of the most contentious conditions in Hollywood history, Kevin Spacey's departure from All the Money in the World is among the most well-known instances of an actor being replaced mid-production. Originally cast as J. Paul Getty in Ridley Scott's 2017 historical thriller All the Money in the World, which chronicles the kidnapping of Getty's grandson, Spacey. When several claims of sexual misbehavior against Spacey emerged in late 2017, sparking a media maelstrom, he had already completed shooting his sequences. Leading Scott, the production crew made the quick and unheard-of choice to replace Spacey just 6 weeks before the film's planned premiere in response to public outcry. Though most of the movie had already been shot, Christopher Plummer was brought in to replace him. Massive reshoots followed from this choice, with Plummer filling in for already finished scenes. Not only was the timing tight, but the movie had already been edited and ready for release. Thus, this was an unusual action. With Plummer supposedly finishing his work in just 9 days, Scott and his crew were able to reshoot all of Spacey's scenes in a few days. Although the reshoots cost about $10 million, the bet paid off for the movie. Plummer's performance earned him an Academy Award nomination for Best Supporting Actor, which turned out to be a bright spot for an effort buried in controversy. Spacey's career suffered a great deal concurrently. He dropped from the popular Netflix series House of Cards and becoming persona non grata in Hollywood. Several Spacey-related initiatives were shelved, and his future in the entertainment business started to seem dubious. Coming at the height of the #MeToo movement, the choice to remove Spacey marked a turning moment in the dialogue about responsibility in Hollywood. The debate over his firing hastened changes in the way misbehavior charges were handled in the movie business. Representing a significant change in Hollywood's tolerance for such behavior, Spacey's replacement in All the Money in the World is still among the most extreme actions taken against a well-known actor today. Megan Fox in Transformers: Dark of the Moon. One of the most prominent and contentious firings in recent Hollywood history came with Megan Fox leaving the Transformers series. Rising to popularity from her performance as Michaela Baines in the first 2 Transformers movies, Fox was conspicuously absent from the third installment, Transformers: Dark of the Moon, 2011. The explanation is a sour spat with filmmaker Michael Bay, peaked during the Transformers: Revenge of the Fallen, 2009 advertising. When Fox made highly provocative remarks about Bay in an interview, likening him to despot leaders like Hitler, the conflict between Fox and Bay came under public notice. She attacked his on-set behavior, charging him with being unduly focused on surface elements of filmmaking and unnecessarily domineering. She said in her now famous comment, "He's like Napoleon and he wants to create this crazy, infamous madman reputation. On his settings, he strives to be like Hitler and is indeed." The executive producer of the movie, Steven Spielberg, who apparently ordered her dismissal, disagreed with Fox's analogy of Bay to Hitler. Fox was dismissed from the production as a result, and British model and actress Rosie Huntington-Whiteley replaced Sam Witwicky as his love interest. Fox later emphasized that although industry insiders felt her departure was directly related to her provocative comments, the decision to leave was mutual. Fox saw major ramifications from her leaving. Her quick ascent to prominence had been much influenced by the Transformers series, hence her exclusion from Dark of the Moon perplexed many of her admirers. Though Fox's career suffered a brief downturn, the film itself did well at the box office. She worked on smaller projects but battled to land big parts in well-known movies for several years. Fox has admitted the immaturity of her remarks in the years following the event, and her relationship with Bay has since grown as seen by her later appearances in his produced Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles films. Looking back, Fox's termination was a big career turning point. She finally repaired her reputation by avoiding franchise movies and concentrating on more varied parts, even though it impeded her path as a blockbuster star. Still, her removal from Transformers is a classic illustration of how off-screen conflict may have significant Hollywood repercussions. Terrence Howard in Iron Man 2, Terrence Howard's leaving the Marvel Cinematic Universe, MCU, surprised and divided people equally. In the original Iron Man movie, Howard portrayed Colonel James Rhodey, a character fans wanted him to reinterpret in next versions. But when Iron Man 2 came out in 2010, it was Don Cheadle, not Howard, wearing the War Machine costume alongside Tony Stark of Robert Downey Jr. The rationale is a contract conflict presumably centered on Howard's pay demands. With a pay more than Robert Downey Jr., who was still building his reputation at the time, Howard was among the top-paid performers in the original Iron Man film. But following the great popularity of the first movie, Downey's value surged, and Marvel Studios concentrated their financial might on keeping him on board. Howard reportedly turned down a suggestion to take a large wage reduction when negotiations for Iron Man 2 started. There were whispers that creative differences and set issues also had a part in Howard's leaving. While some sources said that Howard's challenging behavior on site helped to explain the decision to replace him, others suggested that the way his character was portrayed conflicted between Howard and Marvel's creators. Marvel finally reinterpret the part with renowned actor Don Cheadle, who approaches Rhodey differently. With Cheadle's Rhodey remarking to Tony Stark, "It's me, I'm here, deal with it," Iron Man 2 directly addressed the cast change. Heitl's performance of Rhodey gave the character a more grounded and serious quality, and he became a regular in the MCU, showing up in later movies as a major ally to Tony Stark. Howard and Marvel have been dealing with continuous blowback. Howard has openly expressed his discontent with the way things were handled, alleging that he helped start the MCU by accepting a risk on the original Iron Man and felt let down by the choice to cut his income. Though it didn't affect the popularity of the franchise, Howard's leaving remains one of the most well-publicized recasting choices in Marvel history, leaving many fans wondering what may have been had Howard stayed in the part. James Remar in Aliens. The sequence in which James Remar was sacked from his part in the 1986 film Aliens is one of those behind-the-scenes events that gives the production history of a film an unexpected twist. Initially, Remar was supposed to be Corporal Hicks, a pivotal character in James Cameron's science fiction horror sequel. Conversely, Remar was let go from his job not long after the production started for officially labeled as creative differences. Remar revealed over a number of years that his fight with drug addiction was one of the personal issues driving his departure. The decision to terminate Remar came as a complete surprise as the movie was already under shooting. The production team found great difficulties selecting someone to replace him. Michael Biehn agreed to take over from Remar as Corporal Hicks. Hence, all of the scenes Remar had already finished would have to be reshot. Following recently completing his work on The Terminator, where he had worked with Cameron, Biehn was free, which was a lucky development for the production. Many people were totally ignorant that the cast had changed because of how perfectly the move was executed. Remar left behind a quiet approach behind the scenes, and the team respected his delicate nature of personal problems. Remar has openly acknowledged his firing over time and thought back on the lessons he discovered from the event. He has had a great career in the years that followed, starring in movies such The Warriors and Dexter. Though Remar's inability to participate in Aliens was clearly a setback, his candor about his problems has earned him respect in the company. Judy Garland in Valley of the Dolls. Reflecting the emotional difficulties Judy Garland encountered late in her life, her discharge from Valley of the Dolls, 1967, marked a sad chapter in her career. Originally slated as Helen Lawson, a sharp, aging Broadway performer for the Jacqueline Suzanne film adaptation, Garland was Garland's continuing battles with addiction and health problems at the time tarnished her reputation, Hence, her participation in the production was considered as a possible comeback. Garland's own troubles, however, finally brought her departure. She apparently battled to appear on time, and when she did, her erratic conduct sometimes prevented her from performing. The directors chose Susan Hayward to replace her following multiple manufacturing delays. Although Garland left a shadow over the production, Hayward gave the part great presence. Garland's reputation at the time was much changed by the termination. Though she had given some of the most famous performances in Hollywood history, it strengthened the public view of her as erratic. Garland sadly would die just 2 years after her dismissal, but her reputation is unstained as among the best performers of all time. The part in Valley of the Dolls became a side note in her legendary career. Anne Hathaway in Knocked Up. Originally cast as Allison Scott in Judd Apatow's 2007 film Knocked Up, Anne Hathaway eventually landed on Katherine Heigl. Hathaway left the movie because of creative issues with Apatow, mostly because a gruesome birthing sequence she felt awkward recording. She decided to leave the project since she believed the portrayal of the delivery was too strong and not fit for her vision for the part. Relative new to her success in Grey's Anatomy, Katherine Heigl filled in for Hathaway. Her performance was well received, and the success of the movie owed much to her chemistry with Seth Rogen. Though Heigl later voiced concern of the way the movie portrayed women, Knocked Up became a box office blockbuster and confirmed her reputation as a top comic actor. Hathaway's career was unaffected by her choice to quit Knocked Up. She indeed went on to find critical and financial success in movies like The Devil Wears Prada and Les Miserables. When Hathaway thought back on the situation later, she said she had no regrets about her decision, since she knew it was crucial to keep to her artistic limits. Stuart Townsen in The Lord of the Rings. Originally cast for Stuart Townsen, Aragorn, one of Peter Jackson's The Lord of the Rings trilogy's main characters, was recast only a few days into the shooting. Viggo Mortensen ultimately landed the part, and the decision to reinterpret Aragorn had a significant effect on the movie as well as Townsen's professional path. Townsen had been closely involved in the pre-production process over several months, attending rehearsals, clothes fittings, and fight training. Still, it became clear not long after the movie started that Townsen's Aragorn portrayal did not match Jackson's conception of the character. Jackson thought Townsen, who was in his late 20s at the time, seemed too young for the position of Aragorn, who he saw as a more seasoned and matured leader. Townsen was therefore let go from his job, and Mortensen, who was in early 40s at the time, was hired to replace him. Mortensen's performance of Aragorn became legendary, and he is today inexorably tied to the protagonist, who is generally considered as one of the most beloved figures in the annals of cinematic history. The firing caused Townsen to suffer a great setback. After some time, he expressed his discontent with the choice and claimed he felt he had not been given a chance to prove his value. Still regarded as one of the most important casting moves in Hollywood history is the exclusion of Townsen from The Lord of the Rings. Though Townsen went on to have a great career, Aragorn's part could have totally changed it. Ryan Gosling in The Lovely Bones. Ryan Gosling was famously dismissed from the production as he had arrived at the set of The Lovely Bones, 2009, having gained a significant weight for his performance. Although Gosling was under consideration for Jack Salmon, the grieving father who forms the main character in the movie, he saw the character as having a bigger physique since he thought this would more faithfully portray his emotional state. Ryan Gosling gained 60 pounds getting ready for the part by eating melting ice cream. This decision was taken without consulting Peter Jackson. The filmmaker also engaged in the project. Reports state that Jackson was surprised by the metamorphosis Gosling had gone through upon arrival on location. The director had a quite different vision for the character than what one would consider as physically hefty. He considered him as having more psychological and emotional fragility. Gosling was sacked just a few days before the filming was set to start, because to this artistic differences. Mark Wahlberg was hired as a replacement at the last minute, hence a quick modification to the movie's production schedule was required. Later on, Gosling considered the matter and concluded that his choice to gain weight for the part lacked wisdom. This was expressed in his retrospective comment. He realized that the reason Jackson would not understand his ideas was his failure to transmit them. Notwithstanding the setback, Ryan Gosling's career kept growing, with outstanding performances in movies like Drive and La La Land, proving that his early firing had no restrictions on his rise to popularity. Harvey Keitel in Apocalypse Now. One among the several dramatic events in the turbulent production of Francis Ford Coppola's war epic is Harvey Keitel's firing from Apocalypse Now. Originally cast as Captain Benjamin Willard, Keitel needed to adopt a somber, reflective manner. But just a few weeks into shooting, Coppola determined that Keitel's portrayal of the role was too forceful and outwardly confrontational, not in line with his idea of Willard as a more subdued, inner figure. Martin Sheen then took Keitel's place, better suited for Coppola's idea of a more subdued, meditative Willard. Given that Apocalypse Now's production was already beset with problems like financial overruns, weather-related delays, and the physical toll on the cast and crew, the change proved difficult. To add to the turmoil, Sheen personally experienced a heart attack while filming, but Sheen's performance finally turned out to be among the most legendary in movie history. Keitel considered the firing as a blow, although it did not end his career. Rising with spectacular performances in movies like Taxi Driver and Mean Streets, he became among Hollywood's most revered performers. Sheen's career shot forward, meanwhile, as Apocalypse Now established him as a starring man. Though dramatic, the firing was only one element of the fabled anarchy engulfing the creation of Coppola's war epic. Eric Stoltz in Back to the Future. During the Back to the Future 1985 production, Eric Stoltz was replaced by Michael J. Fox following several weeks of filming, therefore marking one of the most well-known recastings in cinema history. Originally slated as Marty McFly, Stoltz was clearly too somber for the light-hearted tone of the movie as filming developed. Although producer Steven Spielberg and director Robert Zemeckis had seen Back to the Future as a light-hearted, fast-paced adventure, Stoltz tackled the part with a method-acting intensity that ran counter to their comic vision. Despite the time and money previously invested on filming with Stoltz, Zemeckis decided after much thought to recast Marty. Originally unavailable due to scheduling difficulties with his television show Family Ties, Michael J. Fox was hired to replace Stoltz. He was the original choice of the filmmakers. Though almost all of Stoltz's scenes needed reshoot, it turned out to be the appropriate choice. Fox's performance as Marty McFly became legendary, turning Back to the Future into a box office smash and a cultural phenomenon. Though certainly a setback, Stoltz's firing did not end his career. He then had a great run on television and in movies, landing major parts in Mask and Pulp Fiction. Still, Fox's casting in Back to the Future is among those fortuitous Hollywood events that helped define the legacy of one of the most cherished movies of the 1980s. The #1 most unforgivable firing. Richard Gere in The Lords of Flatbush. One of Hollywood's most notable casting conflicts still revolves on Richard Gere's departure from The Lords of Flatbush, 1974. After a furious argument with Sylvester Stallone on production, Gere, who had been cast in one of the main parts opposite him, was let go. With allegations of physical confrontations and interpersonal conflicts, the conflict between the two performers grew during filming. The last straw arrived during a lunch break when a particularly ugly food battle broke out, and Stallone reportedly demanded Gere be taken off the production. Perry King soon replaced Gere, and the movie went on without more trouble. Still, the bad blood between Stallone and Gere lasted years. In interviews, both performers have tackled the conflict. Stallone once said he and Gere were like oil and water, and they could never have worked together. Hollywood history holds that this firing is typically unforgivable because of the sheer intensity of the argument and the long-standing tension that followed. Gere's career shot off after early setbacks in movies like American Gigolo and Pretty Woman. Naturally, with Rocky and Rambo, Stallone became a household name. Both performers went on to achieve great success, demonstrating that even the most dramatic firings cannot always stop rising talents, even if the conflict may never have totally healed. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and click on the video popping up on your screen now for more exciting Hollywood stories. See you in the next one.